This is the Balanced Advisor Podcast with Dr. Travis Perry, helping financial advisors like you achieve balance in their lives.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Balanced Advisor Podcast. I'm joined with Vito Grammatico. Thanks for being here, Vito.
Pleasure to be here, Travis. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited about this episode. Vito and I have chatted before and created somewhat of a partnership with his software and the stuff he does with advisors. So I'm really excited to talk with him today and it really expose you to his methods and the things that he's been able to do. We're very much aligned in a lot of ways. So Vito is the CEO and founder of Time Lyft, a company that offers time management software for financial advisors. And this is, again, one of the reasons why I'm super excited. I want to talk to you and get into this software and show advisors how they can use this and how this really helps them to have better balance. But first, Vito, tell us a little bit about how you got to this industry. Why are you serving financial advisors? How did your career path lead you down this road?
Yeah, it's it was very unexpected and just kind of a fun journey, I guess. So I spent my career about the last 10 years in career counseling and coaching, and a lot of the time it would be not so much just exclusively advisors, but people that are at a crossroad in their lives and really struggling to kind of that next step. So I would see advisors come in who just were at the end of their ropes and just really at the point where they actually pretty much left the industry. They just said, you could tell they were burnt out, just couldn't get a grasp on things. So it was always a fascination for me. And I said, what's happening over there? So when I was completing my master's of business administration a few years ago, I had the pleasure of actually kind of working with some local wealth management firms. And I got to see some that actually just were absolutely fantastic, I thought, in terms of culture, in terms of how they organized their service model, and really just actually developed for them a time utilization tool to kind of evaluate their capacity and their advisor's balance. So I really just, from there, just met that kind of those, I guess, the natural kind of way I was coaching and counseling and found a way to turn it into an application to really help advisors with time management.
That's really fascinating. Well, that's fantastic. I love that you found a challenge with a group of individuals and you found your niche. Like, hey, I'm going to help these, guys and gals in this industry that are struggling, because that's kind of my story too, right? Is just being able to say, okay, the financial advising, group really needs help managing time and balancing their schedules, and you're able to kind of grab the bull by the horns. I know we're going to talk later about your solution with that and how you've been able to help them. But first, tell me a little bit about, and this audience, about your definition of balance.
Yeah, for me, balance, I always think, okay, when I wake up every day, do I feel recharged? Do I feel refreshed? Because really, burnout, number one sign if you have a bad work-life balance. So for me, it's how do you feel? How's your energy level? And for me, I think, and you touch on this in your book a bit, Travis, as well, but the idea of, to have that balance, looking at the different categories in your life, right? Looking at, personal growth, looking at family, friends, love, recreation, and, finance, health, and career, all those categories really, I mean, you can't address all of them. And, you need to kind of find out where your priorities are and find ways to kind of, basically kind of achieve a level in those where you're happy, I guess. So for me, balance is kind of that act of, balancing out those different categories, I guess.
Yeah. And so many people have said exactly what you say. It's like it's how you feel. It's your energy level. I've talked to a lot of advisors, and some, have even said, hey, it's not so much time management as it is energy management. And I get it. Like it totally is. It's the energy level. But managing that time and helping to place it in the areas that are most important, like where you said about the priorities, where your priorities are, and referring back to the book, Achieving Balance, that really does make the difference. Like putting the time where the priorities are really set. So that's obviously very much in line with my thought process and the whole concept that people, as they read, Achieving Balance, can learn about. But what, now that you've been helping so many advisors, and even before you created the software to help with the solution, even before you were doing that, like you were helping advisors with their career, what do you see as maybe, you know, an issue or two or three for most advisors that you've counseled with their balance?
Yeah, the biggest thing really, it comes to clients, and it's all about that fiduciary relationship there, that trust. The advisors just feel that they need to do everything they can for their clients. And really, you have trouble saying no, you know, in terms of setting those boundaries, in terms of, okay, you know, like these are the touch points. These are, you know, obviously, a clear idea of when they're going to be communicating or relating information, and just leaving the door way too open. So just kind of, taking those, it turns into these situations where, okay, you want to help the clients, but if you're spending all this time on certain clients or all of your clients, you're not going to be able to service all of them. So it was that really that kind of, I'd say, lack of service model or lack of consistency, I think, with what to expect from clients.
Yeah, I think so many get in this career and they realize, whoa, this is a marketing career. I really got to gain new clients or get a ton of referrals to stay in business, that they don't plan for a service model, right? They've got a sales model, and the ones that are successful have a successful sales model.
Yep.
But the ones that stay, that don't get burned out, like you're talking about, are the ones that have a service model that doesn't destroy them. Because you're exactly right. And I've seen this time and time again where advisors get way out of balance because, well, what about my clients? What if they call me at 10 o'clock at night and they need me and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is most clients aren't calling because there's a real true emergency. They need you, but they could probably wait an hour, right?
Exactly.
And I think there's a little bit of ego, wouldn't you say, of like, well, I feel needed and therefore I am.
That's, yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it's true. Like that's human nature. Like we want to feel important. We want to feel trusted. And then you take this advisor that has, hundreds of clients, and that feeling of trust is just exacerbated to the point where it might, push them out of balance really fast. What, as you've been counseling advisors, what have you found, to be helpful for them to kind of deal with this pressure of trying to serve all of their clients?
Yeah, I find the biggest thing, first of all, is controlling their caseload, essentially their client load. So instead of just having an infinite number, having that, I guess, referral process in place to say, okay, I'm going to stick with these, if it's asset management, usually 100 clients. And as I get more clients on board, well, maybe I'll have referrals from my other clients, maybe that, I'm not able to service anymore, and obviously at the end of the day, you're looking at, your time is valuable. So as an advisor, you want to be able to maximize, your value that you're getting for your time, right? So some people don't want to refer people to away, but it's the best for the client sometimes. So to have that referral process in place to say, okay, I have this other trusted advisor, I'm going to refer these clients so that I can focus on the clients, that I have on my load here. And as well, just laying out regular touch points, not just saying, okay, once a year we're going to have an annual meeting, but okay, like once a month, am I going to send them a communication? Am I going to give them information so they know that they're in the loop still? Because yeah, I mean, if you're just going touch and go, then it's going to just accumulate and you're just going to lose control of your business, really.
Yeah, I couldn't say that better than what you just said. It'll actually run away with you. And some advisors who are newer in the business go, man, I can't wait for that problem. And I'm telling you now, it'll sneak up on you so fast as you're building a great model. You need to have the service in place. I remember as an advisor, I had 3 people on my team. One was mainly focused on getting the underwriting and the paperwork on the investment side done. One was focused on the marketing, and one was just servicing clients. And you think, well, wait a minute, you're like brand new in the business. You've got this team. Well, yes, because I knew as I was growing, I didn't have the time to meet and service everybody and deal with all their concerns. And, they were licensed and they were able to answer questions. So that was a beautiful part of it. And I could sit there and meet and talk with those clients who needed my help. One of the biggest things that I see is that those servicing questions come in email, because now it's more like, well, I have this quick question. And advisors tell me all the time, Travis, that takes me like 30 minutes to respond. And it's, has to go through compliance tracks and everything. So it's a pain. It takes a lot of this time. What do you, have you seen that? Have you heard advisors also kind of, counsel with you about all this time that they are using to reply back through the electronic means?
Yeah, emails are such a huge time sink, and you're right. Like, it takes a few seconds for a client to send us an email, but it turns into a half a day work all of a sudden, just to follow up. A big part of it is just acknowledging, I think, the time that goes into that. So, just seeing, okay, yeah, you have your service model. That doesn't mean that's the time you're putting on your clients. You think, okay, based on my service model, I have all this time throughout the year, I'll be fine. Well, how about all that time that's going into those kind of things? Like looking at it not just in terms of face-to-face meetings, but how often are you responding to emails for each client? How often are you having phone calls? How often are you doing research and compliance, and like what goes into a client entirely? And I know there's a certain level of in advisory field, it's like you don't want to, I guess, say that there's never enough time to put into a client, almost the mindset of that. But I think it's important to acknowledge profitability of clients as well. Like there's so many factors, and yeah, you have to look at their referrals and the priority status, their financial knowledge. All of those are factors that go into a client and make it ideal for you. But profitability is one of those factors, and it's not a taboo word to value your time and look at how much what are you making out of it. If you're making $10 an hour because you're putting so much time into these clients, you're not valuing your own time, and that affects your family, that affects your friends too. So I think it's important to kind of have that understanding.
This is so crucial what you just said. I spend a great deal of my time when I'm working with advisors. One of the very first things we do is value their time.
Yep.
And I found that a lot of advisors struggle with this. Just yesterday, I was meeting with an advisor who said, well, here's my hourly rate. And I said, great, but what's the value of your time? And it was a lot more than his hourly rate. I'm like, well, then why are you charging that? And I find a lot of advisors charge that because that's what this guy does, or that's what the market is saying it will bear, but they're not valuing their time, even client per client, like you're saying. So what if they have huge AUM and you're going to manage that, but are they a huge complex case that's going to take a ton, more of your time? Should you be charging a fee for that? I would say yes. And I think you would agree. Like if you don't absolutely value your time correctly, then you're bringing on a new client who's going to clog up your service model. And this is a big deal that I try to help advisors, deal with, is this expectation of where their time value is. And you mentioned, hey, referring them out. Some, advisors have a built-in system for that. It's a junior advisor. Well, how I could give, if I had $1 for every time someone said, I just need to hire a junior advisor. Every time I talk to them about their time management, like, well, yeah, you mean you just need to take your broken system and give it to someone else? Like, no, like you need to create the system now first with you. Then you need to bring on a junior advisor to help offset, delegate some of those things to you. And it's possible that you've brought in clients that no longer fit your model, and that's okay. But to bring in a junior advisor who's trained that can help them the right way, and then offload that to that junior advisor, I think is a wonderful idea. So I like the thought process that you're asking people. How about the time that goes into those things? How often are you emailing, phone calls? Dealing with clients entirely. We need to calculate the cost. Advisors are great at looking at the fees for the assets under management. But what about the total cost of time? Brilliant. I love this direction. I know that, you're an advisor to advisors, you're a counselor to these advisors. What are some of the biggest issues for you when you're trying to achieve balance? Because you've got this startup technology company, you have your own, career, your counseling advisors and others in their businesses. What are some of the things that you struggle with?
Yeah, and that's why it's such a universal thing, and it's similar, I guess, in terms of, meeting with people, right? And you look at a potential, like, let's say, prospective clients or anything like that, you're looking at, okay, like being able to kind of just say no to certain things, right? Time is, finite, and, you can't meet with everyone. You can't do everything. And, I know myself, just in terms of my, I have a career in career counseling as well, right? So balancing that out with, Time Lyft is always a challenge that, day to day, I have to just lay out my priorities and just understand, okay, this is what I can accomplish today, and this is what I can't, and that's okay. I don't have to do it all today. And that's a daily thing. It's not something that I just say, okay, no, I'm good forever now, I know what to do. No, every day I have to reevaluate my priorities and understand, okay, today this is what is taking over, and I need to just wait. So.
Yeah. So it's a struggle. And I know there's a lot of advisors who maybe advising is their main career, and they have an offshoot, something additional, on the side, that either they want to make that their full-time gig, or they just want to have that to give back, or maybe it's time spent in a nonprofit, or maybe it is a tech company. There's several advisors that I know that they're great advisors and they're fintech founders. Derek Notman is one, and he's a great friend of mine that we've met actually through the COVID, shutdown and everything. We met online, and we've been able to connect. And I know Derek as well.
Sure.
So yeah, that's definitely a struggle. What have you found to be helpful? I mean, you said you've got to prioritize every day. In the book, I talk about having themes each day. Monday, maybe it's an organization day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe those days where you trade off marketing and meeting with clients. And Friday, it's possible that that's kind of your wrap up, work on content that you can, post to social or email or things out to your, prospective clients. It sounds like you're doing something very similar as you're prioritizing out your day. Do you have themes? Have you used that before? If so, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's so important too. And I love that concept in your book. And it's something that I think is just so true in terms of looking at, okay, like the different areas of your life, and how you're going to kind of prioritize those different, what's important to you, right? Like, what does it really come down to? Because that's what's going to make you happy, right? So, and at the same time, looking at that, I was like, how can I accomplish what I need to in an efficient way, where I'm being able to kind of, basically kind of almost delegate certain things, right? I mean, and it could even be like, personally, like, it doesn't necessarily mean a certain staff for that, but even just, let's say, hiring someone just to kind of take care of a certain thing, like a marketing strategy, or just being able to hand off what doesn't need to be addressed directly by you. And I think it comes down to evaluating, okay, well, yeah, sure, that costs money, but how much time would I put into it? And how do I value my time? And kind of looking at that and saying, okay, well, it's going to take 10 hours. Is it worth this amount? Well, probably, yeah. It's going to impact me. I'm going to be a lot happier. I'm going to be able to accomplish a lot more. And really, if I'm looking at my priority, and, in my life, I always look at my priorities as being, like health, and then, family as well. And, am I going to be able to kind of keep those in balance while achieving my career goals?
Yeah, that's excellent. So I know that health and family, those are your top priorities, as you mentioned. You're really counting the cost. That's kind of what I pulled from this. Like, you're really emphasizing count the cost. Look at where you're spending your time. Ask yourself these questions when you bring on a new client, or where you're spending your time every day. And it's something that I think we all could use that reminder of. So really, really important there, so you can keep those priorities. What have you found that's been helpful for you to make sure that health and family stay at the top?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, it's actually having set time set aside every week to actually focus on that, and breaking it down. So in terms of health, for example, I look at, okay, not even just physical health, but I'm also looking at, like, mental health as well, right? Or spiritual health, looking at, okay, I'm going to set aside a certain amount every day to meditate. For me, that just for mental well-being, I find it's irreplaceable. And sometimes I combine that with, for example, hiking. Maybe that's something I can do together, and it address health in both aspects. For family, I set aside every weekend a time for dinner. So a family dinner just with my parents and, my wife, and, just having that in place so that, okay, that is a boundary, essentially, I guess, a boundary for these different areas, so that I can make sure, okay, no matter what happens this week, I have that in place. It's there. It's in my calendar. I'm not gonna interfere with that. And I think it's important to be consistent with that. That's the biggest thing for me too. There's been weeks where I've blown that off. I'm not, no one's perfect. Like, there's been weeks where I've said, okay, I got so much to do. I got to do all of it. And then I go back and I'm like, was that worth it? And most of the time it's not. I find, there was another way I could have done it better. And, I kind of go back and reassess. And I think a big part of it is really that self-reflection. So kind of looking at yourself, whether it be at the end of every day, every week, what did you accomplish and how do you feel about it more than anything? Because that's the biggest thing. And if you're aware of your priorities, you'll know, okay, I feel like I don't feel right about it. Well, your priorities were probably neglected, your top priorities, and you're not going to feel balanced. So for me, it's kind of doing those check-ins with myself.
Love it. Yeah. Super important. Have those check-ins, know when you should be setting those high priorities and actually making it happen, right? Carrying through, having that action actually be there on your calendar so you do it. And I think the more that you get into that habit, the easier it is to stay in that habit of making that the priority. Are there going to be times where, maybe work really truly is calling your name that day or that week and you have to put aside in a priority for a time being? Yeah. But if that is the consistent issue that you find every week, that is a new habit, right? But what you're doing is you're making that an absolute priority, and you're telling yourself, and by actually carrying that through, completing that action, you're telling your mind that this truly is important, and it rewards you. It rewards you with loving family relations. It rewards you with feeling good, right? Yep. And that kind of goes back to our very first definition of balance. When you're feeling, for you, it's health and family. When you're feeling that, then you're like, yeah, life is good. I'm balanced. I'm doing well. I love that. I love that. Setting that time aside each week.
I know a big part of it, like for me, I know like Sunday evening, I can tell right away. Did I, it's like a check-in for myself. If I feel re-energized, if I feel good about the next week, great. If I feel burnt out still and I feel like, it's clearly there was something missed. And that's a cue for myself to kind of say, okay, that week something went wrong. I need to nail it down because I can't do this every week, or it's not gonna end well, I guess, overall, right? So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. You can feel that. And you like that check-in that you're talking about. For me, I suggest, and I tell this, in the book, keep yourself accountable, but stay accountable to your spouse and have them help you if you're married to be able to say, hey, where are you spending your time? And where, talk about that time and be accountable to each other as well to have that added layer. So that's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit how you're helping advisors with Time Lyft, with this software that I've just was so grateful to find you so that I don't have to create it. I am not a software guy. I come up with concepts and want other people to do their thing, and you've already created. So it's so nice to be able to connect with you, Vito, and find you in this year of COVID mess. There's been some great things that have come out of this, and that has been able to network more with people online and find you. Because you're up in Canada, right? You're just barely over the border, right? You're almost with us, but you're still on the other side, and that's okay. We still love you.
Well, thank you.
We can be friends with Canucks, that's for sure. Well, so how do you help advisors with Time Lyft? Tell us about Time Lyft. I know it's a software piece. I know it helps track time for advisors, but what does it actually do?
Yeah, so a few things, and really, I nailed down where I think guiding advisors to their work-life balance and the progress towards achieving it. So being able to kind of look at it, on a monthly, weekly basis in terms of, okay, like, is my life as balanced as I thought it was? And, we can always, it's one thing to kind of think about it and talk about it, but it's another thing to have a space where you can actually see it and track it and make sure you're on track, because otherwise you're just, it's going to be difficult to be consistent. And know if you're achieving your goal, like to be able to actually have metrics in place to be able to measure and use the SMART method, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, reliable, testable. Well, yeah, you want to be able to have something like that for something as important as your work-life balance. I mean, it's your whole life, right? So if there's anything to kind of measure how you're doing at something, it's that, right? So that's one area. I think another one really is, as a business grows, being able to accept that, you can't take every client with you. And we talked about this earlier, right? Which clients do you need to refer to, whether it be another advisor or someone within your firm, right? Is it time for that, right? Being able to kind of have a visualization, I guess, of which clients are, I guess, the most value, you get the most value for your time. And those clients that maybe, from a business perspective or even a work-life balance perspective is, okay, I'm not going to be able to service this client anymore to the level I'm trying to grow my business and my career goals. It's time, right? So I know in the application, there's hourly profitability ratios we get for every client. We show how many hours go into each client, and you can kind of compare that and monthly kind of assess where you are at with that process. So that's a big part of it as well. So with that in mind too, I think, it obviously is a supplement to coaching. I think coaching goes hand in hand with it. So you have your coach and they're helping you out. And this is a great tool to make sure that, you're on track with your goals set out with your coach, and making sure that you're sticking with it, in the future too. So that's a big part of it. Making sure you grow your business the right way. So are you actually retaining the clients you're supposed to, or are you keeping maybe the clients that are giving you that imbalance? So yeah, you're referring clients, that's one thing, but are you referring the right ones, and are you actually like maximizing your time in that regard? So that's a big part of it as well. And just ensuring you stick to your service model. So service models are such a great way to kind of achieve that balance, but are you sticking with it? And are you achieving the promises to your clients? Sometimes we talk about putting a lot of time into your client. Well, are there clients that fall through the cracks and maybe you haven't touched base with them in a few months? And that's something I think is important to kind of visualize and see, instead of trying to, in the back of your mind, keep track of it. And, if you're in a CRM system, just, trying to find where a client hasn't been maybe, touch base with in a while, being able to actually have something point out to you, hey, this client, there's nothing going on with them in 2 months or something. So I think all of that kind of together, the idea is, ensuring you're maintaining that balance and, sticking with what you set out to accomplish.
Yeah, that's great. You touched on a lot of things here, and I'm looking at the software. It's Time Lyft with a Y, .com. And, what I love about this is that you can actually see your team's revenue. You can see, revenue per client. You can, look at all of the insights that you have, the reports on capacity level, your monthly task comparison, your comparison of your productive hours per month. So what I teach, in helping advisors be balanced, you're now really focusing in on the business aspect of it to help them be more productive, and then track that productivity. I know when goals are tracked, it's much more likely that they're achieved. So having something to track, having something to then even look at how your team is spending their time. If you're growing a team and as you're coaching them to help them reach their goals, right, as you mentioned, that's huge. What a great tool this can be. Tell us about the integration, because I know one of the biggest things that advisors roll their eyes at is like, oh, great, here's another app, and advisors, I know the shiny object syndrome, but it's like shiny software syndrome. And, what is it that I need to, buy now, and how do I integrate it? So how is this an easy integrative system to what they're already using for their own CRM?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, right? You want a time management tool to help you manage time, not to be a time sink in itself, right? So that's the whole idea, is that you basically just pull the information from software you're using. That's the whole idea behind this. So for example, your email, your calendar there, pulling information regarding appointments into the appointment, just a quick kind of click every month to do that. Pulling information from your CRM system, obviously advisors spend a lot of time tracking everything in there, and being able to leverage that to kind of get a picture of, okay, what is going into these clients, right? I mean, and pulling that into the software. So really it's designed to basically integrate with the software that advisors use, so that you can just basically kind of spend just a brief time in there just pulling information in every month, and you can see those insights and be able to kind of get that guidance without having to actually spend too much time in there tracking things.
Yeah, because if this wasn't integrated, like, this would be a total waste of time, I think.
Yep, for sure.
Because you'd have to, like, well, how do I track this, and what do I? but the fact that it's integrative, does it automatically then track a certain task that you do, or do you have to go in and plug in and say, this is what this was?
No, so it'll basically pull it and match it for you. So, every advisor would have the flexibility to kind of add in the system what kind of tasks they do on a regular basis, and it's designed to just match with the client, with the time, and pull that in immediately and immediately see, okay, that's what went into this client. So, realistically, within a few seconds, being in the app, you can basically kind of access those insights every month.
Oh, that's excellent. That is good use of time. That's excellent use of time, because the last thing you want is something else to try and manage, but you want a tool that can be used for you to help you, not pull you away from what you're trying to do. I love that. Fantastic. Now I know that, this is fairly new stuff, right? This is a fairly new piece of software. When did you actually roll this out?
Yeah, so over the last year, actually, we've launched it, and the development really, and you touched on it there, was really being able to, I corresponded with, lots of advisors in terms of just understanding, like, how can we make it as easy to use and as much of a help as possible without being a burden? And that was the biggest thing. How do we minimize user burden through it? So that was a big part of it. And like I said, it was launched about a year ago, and we've been able to kind of make it so that, it doesn't take your time. It's about helping you, manage your time.
That's fantastic. So everything we've been talking about, what you will actually be able to see, what is your time value with your clients. Does it have an estimator tool that would be able to help advisors guess like how much time it would take with a prospective client? I'm just throwing that out there. It just came to me right now. I'm not sure if that's something that's already ingrained or something you have coming through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a big part of it too, right? If you want to actually, like, let's say, just test out, I guess, like a service model or time into a client and say, okay, like, what would this look like? Yeah. I mean, that is a great way of using it too. At a high level, you can definitely go in there and just literally put in your service model in a few seconds to say, okay, these are my client tiers. And that's a great way of organizing your cases as well, as just, different categories and what touch points and what time goes into each of them. And you can estimate and throw it in there and see, okay, this is what it breaks down to. This is what I estimate for assets under management and my revenue. And what does that look like? So if you're trying to establish your service model or understand how, if it's worthwhile to bring a client on board, using it in that capacity is a great way to kind of visualize, okay, this is what it would break down to. Like, based on meeting with clients this many times and this, this many activities and this projected, let's say, revenue, what does that look like for my time? And what does that look like for my monthly capacity? And is it something that I can manage? And if not, well, maybe I need to adjust that and fine tune it to make sure that I am achieving that.
Wonderful. That's a huge benefit, I think, of this software, where I'm not seeing anything like this ever. I think a lot of advisors are just doing this calculation in their head, right? They're just kind of winging it. They know their service model, and many, really, really like their model, and they're kind of attached to it. But so many advisors don't know, well, what is the actual time output, as we talked earlier. So your software really does answer these questions, like, what is your, value per client? How much time might this cost them? What their service model looks like. What a fantastic tool to be able to use, get going. So if advisors want to do this, they want to jump on and they want to, utilize the software, what should they do? How do they get involved with Time Lyft?
Yeah. So just head over to our website, timelyft.com. Again, Lyft is spelled with a Y. And absolutely. There's options on there for teams and individual advisors as well. And we can get you set up right away. I encourage you to check it out. And we're always open to, doing a kind of a call, a demo to kind of go over some of the features and, see if it's the right fit for you. And obviously, important thing that we keep in mind is that different advisory firms have different approaches to things and different ways they organize their business. So we're always open to kind of customizing it to meet the specific needs of that specific advisor or that specific firm, to make sure it kind of fits like a glove, I guess, in terms of the integrations, and also to see what you want to see out of it, right? If there's certain metrics, we'd be happy to add it to kind of give you that insight.
Excellent. I appreciate your time today, Vito. I appreciate you explaining what Time Lyft can do to help advisors be more balanced. This is exactly what I was hoping to get out of today. And I know, looking at your software, I mean, this is affordable. There's levels for small, medium, large teams, and there's demos, right? You can schedule that demo and try it out. Highly recommend this for advisors who are struggling with this, knowing that they need some more productivity in their life. So thank you for being here, Vito.
Oh, thanks for having me, Travis. It's a pleasure. And yeah, like I said, I know it's been a pleasure just kind of seeing how much we kind of overlap in terms of just our thoughts and processes there. And I really enjoyed your book, actually, Achieving Balance. It's been a pleasure to read that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the plug. And if you haven't picked it up, go to achievingbalancebook.com, get it from me now. It's available, I know, at this point on audio and paperback, and I know the hardback is coming soon. But thanks for being a part of the Balance Advisor podcast show, Vito, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Talk to you soon, Travis.